The Atlanta Braves were an absolute powerhouse in 2023. They had one of the most historical offensive years in baseball history, and they were mere inches away from breaking the all-time home run record for a team in a single season. And most of the same guys were returning in 2024. They had this core locked up for a long time, so there is no reason to believe that 2024 would go any differently, right? Well, things don't always go the way you plan them out. 2024 has slowly gone off the rails for the Atlanta Braves, and even when they were performing well in the early part of the season, there were some things that happened that let us believe like, hey, it's not going to be the same team like you saw last year. On just opening day, all-star catcher Sean Murphy would strain his left oblique against the Phillies in just his second at bat, and he'd be out for a couple months. This would be the first injury that would really impact the Braves season, and there were plenty more to come. On April 5th, in just his second start of the season, Spencer Strider was taken out of the game with right elbow pain, and it was later revealed that he suffered a UCL strain in his right elbow. And a couple days later, it was revealed that he was going to need season-ending surgery on his right elbow. It wasn't going to be exactly Tommy John surgery, but it was going to be this new brace procedure for the UCL, but either way, he's finished for the year. And Spencer Strider was a lot of people's National League Cy Young pick. He's already done for the year. 2 key injuries already. And later on in April, Ozzie Albies would also go on the IL with a fractured right toe after getting hit by a pitch in Houston. So already the Braves have dealt with 3 injuries to key players in the first month of the season. But despite these injuries, the Braves cruised and had a really good April, partly due to the starting pitching being really good, and a lot of other players who weren't necessarily part of that core doing very well. Orlando Arcia had been performing very well in April. To be a little bit more specific, just the first couple of weeks of April, he was doing very well. And spoiler alert, it's not going to get any better for him. Travis d'Arnaud was doing a great job filling in for Sean Murphy offensively, not so much defensively. I could probably steal off Travis d'Arnaud right now. And the offseason bolstering of the rotation with Chris Sale and Reynaldo Lopez had been paying dividends. Both of them had been throwing the hell out of the ball. They had been amazing thus far, and the Braves were still leading the division at the beginning of May. They were up on the Phillies by a half a game, but that wouldn't last very long because the Braves would play about 500 baseball through May, and the Phillies would not play 500 baseball through May. They played well above it, to the point where the Braves were 6 games back behind the Phillies in late May, and May wasn't exactly an injury-free month for the Braves either. Austin Riley would strain his side against the Mets, and he would end up on the injured list for a couple weeks. It's a good thing it was only a couple weeks. And then, in what might be the most devastating injury of the year for the Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr., who just won MVP last year, he would tear his ACL on his left knee. We all know Ronald Acuna Jr. has experience with ACL tears. He tore his right ACL in 2021, and now his other knee's going to need to be repaired. So he's done for the year. He was not having a great year up to that point, or the typical Ronald Acuna Jr. year, but everybody thought, you know, it's only May. He could turn things around. He might not be up there in the MVP voting like he was last year, but surely he will turn it around and he will have a good season. Well, that's unfortunately not going to be the case because he's out for the rest of the season. So it's beginning of June. The Braves are now down their potential Cy Young winner, an all-star catcher, last year's MVP, and then in just a couple of weeks, Michael Harris goes down with a hamstring injury. He won Rookie of the Year in 2022, and he was a tremendous contributor last year. He's gone for a couple months. I should mention at this point, Sean Murphy had returned, but he had not been the Sean Murphy that we all love. He was not the Sean Murphy of 2023's first half, where he was incredible and had an OPS close to 1,000. He had been more like the Sean Murphy in the second half, where he had an OPS plus well below 100 and well below his career norms in almost every offensive category. And he was not the only one underperforming at this point. That lineup was full of underperformers. Ozzie Albies, when he got back from his injury, he was underperforming. He was not doing very well. Matt Olson, who had 54 home runs last year, had barely gotten double digits in home runs this year at this point. He had an OPS last year in the 900s, well into the 900s. Now it's just around 700. Like, when is he going to get it going? Austin Riley had been good lately, but it took him a while to get going, and he was still below his career norms. The only bright spot in this lineup thus far had been Marcell Ozuna, who had an OPS well over 900. Jared Kelenic did step up a little bit when Ronald Acuna Jr. left the lineup. He got plugged into the leadoff spot and did pretty well for a little bit, but he's been slumping tremendously lately. Travis d'Arnaud had been very good offensively, but it's unlikely he's going to go through the whole season with an OPS around 800 or even in the high 700s. So all in all, this lineup is just not doing it. So when are things going to turn around? I mean, it's just a matter of time for those who are slumping to turn things around and start hitting, right? Let's fast forward to the All-Star break. They're still somehow leading the wild card at this point. They're still playing 500 ball since late April, and this is all due to their pitching. Reynaldo Lopez and Chris Sale had continued to pitch tremendously, and Max Fried had also pitched extremely well after his first shaky couple of starts of the season, and all 3 of them were selected as All-Stars in 2024. But here's where things go from bad to worse. During the game, Max Fried was warming up to go into pitch. He would complete his inning just fine, but a couple days later, all of a sudden, sudden, he's placed on the injured list with left forearm neuritis. Turns out he was feeling discomfort while he was warming up for the All-Star game. He just thought he could pitch through it. But it turns out that pain persisted after the All-Star break, and now we don't know when Max will return. And anytime there's a forearm attached to a pitching injury, especially in their pitching arm, it's scary. First thought is UCL, which means Tommy John surgery. Hopefully that's not what's going to happen with Max Fried. He said himself it was going to be on the shorter end of recovery timelines, but it's still kind of up in the air when he's going to return. And then, just days later, Ozzy Albies fractures his wrist, and he's going to be out for several months. But you know what? It's no problem, because the Braves are just going to pick up Whit Merrifield, who was released by the Phillies earlier. But in a sick, twisted turn of events, he would injure his finger during fielding drills. He would need stitches and have to have his fingernail glued down to his finger. So the guy you pick up just to patch some holes on a sinking ship that is the Braves is injured just hours after you get him. So here we are at this point in late July. Friday night, the Braves lost to the Mets 8-4, which would put the Mets ahead of the Braves for the top spot of the wild card. This would be game 6 of a 6-game losing streak, and right now it doesn't look great. The amount of injuries this team has sustained, plus the amount of players who are underperforming compared to their 2023 seasons and their career norms, is really bad. And this is the first time I think the Braves fans are allowed to think, hey, it's possible that this team may not even make the playoffs at this point. The Diamondbacks and the Padres are right on their heels. They're playing good ball. They're playing much better ball than the Braves right now, not to mention the Mets, who just surpassed them. So these next few days are going to be interesting. The trade deadline is approaching rapidly. It's only a couple days away. The Braves have a couple players in that lineup who are just horrendous at the plate right now. They got Eddie Rosario to patch a hole in the outfield, and he's been one of the worst hitters in baseball. Adam Duvall has been one of the worst hitters in baseball, and Orlando Arcia, he's been one of the worst hitters in baseball overall. And these are 3 players that are almost in the lineup every single day. This is a problem. And also, you don't feel great about the rotation at this point, you know? Max Fried is on the IL. Charlie Morton is 40 years old, so how long is he going to be doing this? Reynaldo Lopez has had a great season, but are we going to see him experience a little bit of regression to the mean? And Chris Sale has been one of the best comeback stories in baseball this year. He's going to get Cy Young votes if he stays healthy, but that's just it. If he stays healthy. If you're the Braves, can you bank on him staying healthy for the rest of the season? Especially with what's happened the last couple years? I want nothing more than that to happen. But is that something you feel comfortable banking on? I don't think so. So whatever the Braves decide to do, they need to do it soon. Whether it's getting some bats for the lineup, Brent Rooker might be an option. The price tag would be pretty high, but they need some more thump in that lineup. Because at this point, I don't think you can bank on anyone turning their seasons around. If they limp their way into the playoffs like they would right now, you can't bank on Michael Harris and Ozzy Albies being 100% healthy for the playoffs. Same thing with Max Fried. There's no definitive timetable on his return, and if he's not healthy again until late September, is he really going to be ready for the playoffs? Going out and getting a starting pitcher at the deadline doesn't seem like a bad idea all of a sudden. So they just need to figure it out soon, because what was the best team in the regular season in baseball last season is in dire need of some help at this point if they want to make the playoffs in 2024 and actually have a shot at winning in the playoffs.